Welcome back to the Between the Pages podcast. Today, we're talking all about Christian friendships in your 20s and 30s because, let's be real, building deep, faith-filled connections in this season isn't always easy. We're joined by our sweet friend Lexi, minister of the gospel and co-lead of Refresh Worship Nights, to dive into how to find and nurture Christ-centered friendships, the power of accountability and spiritual growth, why serving together builds lasting connections. If you've ever felt like making new friends is harder as an adult or wondered how to build deeper, more intentional relationships, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Hey friend, welcome to the Between the Pages podcast, where we explore navigating life's peaks and valleys with bold faith. Join us bi-weekly as we dive into meaningful conversations with guests, team members, and community leaders. Together, we'll tackle topics that challenge and encourage, helping you live out your faith between the pages of everyday life. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. And I am so excited because my girl Lexi is joining me for all things talking about friendship, Jesus, everything you are so passionate about.
Literally.
Because I feel like our friendship has literally been based on Jesus and worship. And it has been a wild ride the last 2 years, which is crazy. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Me too.
Well, we have a lot to dive into, a lot of good things, and I'm excited just to hear your take on some of these questions that our community has and also things that people are struggling with. Like making friends in your 20s and 30s is hard. And it can be something that, you navigate through and you're like, I don't know how to make friends. Like you're not in college. Like maybe you're kind of new to a youth group or like a young adults group and you're like, I don't know who these people are. So lots of things, but I want our people to know who you are first. So why don't you just kind of share a few fun facts about you, what you like to do in your free time?
Oh, snap. Okay. Yeah, I am 23. I live in Cloquet, Minnesota in a little apartment and I love it. I love my little apartment.
It is a cute apartment.
Thank you. It's nice having your own place that you get to kind of make your own. So anyways, I am engaged. That's a pretty big fact of my life right now.
And a new fact too. Newish.
Yeah. It was Christmas Eve, so that was kind of fun.
So you're planning a wedding?
I'm planning a wedding.
That's exciting.
Yes.
That's so fun.
And yeah, but it's going really well, so not really worrying about it right now. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. What do I do in my free time? Honestly, a lot of church things. My life revolves a lot around church, a lot around being with people, and working. And I love that this is our topic today because it's literally my life. Community, church, and growing your relationship with others is so important to me. And so that's my life.
Hey, and I feel like when we were kind of thinking through, the topic for this and something that, you want people that have experienced this, I was like, you know what? Lexi is one of those people who, like, you can find the person who is new or, like, the person who, might not have a group of people and, like, not single them out in a way because that'd be like, whoa. But, like, making them feel seen. And, like, I remember when I first met you at the worship night for DGT on New Year's Eve a couple years ago.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah.
And it was like such like so God divine because it was like, hey, I was like, hi, like you sounded really great up there. And it's like all of a sudden here we are like putting Refresh together, a part of each other's lives, being like, how can we pray for each other and just being sisters in Christ. And I think something for me being, even in I'm 27. And, there is that, like, age difference, but it's, like, you are going through season 2, as am I, of finding friends in your 20s and 30s. Like, I have friends I'm 30 and I'm trying to find my people.
Yeah.
And what for you, kind of just jumping right on in, what would you say makes building friendships in your 20s and 30s maybe different from other seasons of life?
This is an interesting question because it's something that I didn't really think about before, about how it's different. I think some of the ways is you have kind of just come out of high school, college, and you're coming out of the season where you're constantly with people and you're constantly with the group of peers or friends that you see every day, or you're in some classes with, or you're in that special group with, that just is kind of normal to be in. Like,
Right.
you're in a college ministry, or you're in youth group, it's something that is easy to just be at, and that's just kind of expected. And then I think when you hit your 20s and 30s, it's now you have to put the effort in and to go out of your way to find that group that has people in it that have similar interests and want to do what you want to do. And it's just not as easy. It's not as easy to find it because it just takes more effort, honestly.
It's not like a built-in program in a way. Like, I think of like my college years, even my high school years, being super plugged into the church. Like, I had my church people, and I had my college roommates that I saw every single day. We went to breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. We hung out all the time. We went to church together. But then once I moved back to Duluth and back into like a newer community, it's like, oh, like it's, you have to put the work in, like you were saying. And if not, like finding something, like creating that community your own, truthfully. Yeah. A lot of like when you're saying creating your own, like finding it or creating it, like there is that part of like intentionality behind it too. And how have you in your life kind of navigated this whole like being intentional about finding and building deep Christ-centered friendships in your life as a post-college student? You're kind of also entering into a new season of life, being a newly engaged couple, like about to get married, and being like, okay, we're not college students anymore. Like we are young adults getting married and like starting a life together too. Like that's a whole different season and a whole different trying to find community and people to pour into you and your fiance as a couple. Yeah. And as husband and wife.
Yeah. I think that more effort is needed. Like I said, you have to make it a priority. I think it's easy to go through the waves of life and just let it ride. And then you look back and you think, oh, snap, I haven't spent time with someone in a month because life gets busy, and we're, especially in your 20s and 30s, your responsibilities stack up and the things that you want to do, but sometimes just become a pile of responsibilities. They stack up. And so in order to create relationship, I think you have to make it a priority, and you have to say, I'm going to do this, and reach out, and don't be afraid to be the reach outer, if that makes sense. I think sometimes we want so many people to come to us and say, oh, do you want to hang out? Do you want to get involved in this thing?
You don't want to have to do the work.
Yes. That's what frustrates me about any community, but a Christian community. I think you just want you want someone else to say, hey, let's do this. I want to be your community. But I think it a lot of times has to be the opposite. You have to start something. Otherwise, don't expect it to happen to you.
Right. It's so true, because I think a lot of people are like, be like Jesus, and like, oh, okay. But you're like, I want to be in that community. But it's like, no, being like Jesus is you're inviting the people to the table.
Seriously,
you're
that's good.
You're not the person that's going to the table. Yeah. You are trying to invite people to the table. Yeah. And be in that house. And it's funny that you said that, because I felt like that, where I'm like, no one wants to hang out with me. Like, okay, I'll just like put my head down and like go to the gym and do my own thing and whatever. But then I started realizing, like, what is my desire is like, I want to find that core group of like people that I can be like, you're my buddies. Like, you're my accountability partners. You're the people that I can go to and be like, hey, like, here's what I'm really struggling with. Or, hey, what do you got going on today? Or whatever. But, on my vision board for 2025, I have a lot of hosting on there.
That's so sweet.
Because I realized I'm waiting around for someone to invite me to the table rather than inviting people to the table.
That's so good. And for the record, that's where it comes from in my heart. I was also that person that was like, I don't have any friends. No one wants to invite me out to do things. And then I had to come to the realization that I can't be waiting around for other people to do it, because a lot of people won't. And so to be intentional and do it, and hosting, that is just the sweetest thing. I hope to do that as well.
Hey, well, you have your cute little apartment.
That's true.
You hosted me one time.
I'm trying.
And it was so good. You made this like gluten-free, dairy-free like soup.
Mm-hmm.
I still think of that soup. It was really good.
Really?
Yeah, and that was your first time making something gluten-free and dairy-free, I'm
It
pretty sure.
was.
And it was a success.
You didn't see the before when I was trying to use, it was like cornstarch or something. And that's because that was like the flour that was gluten-free. It was a mess. So I'm really glad it worked out because it was such a mess before that. And I was like stirring and I was like, this is not working. So it all worked out.
It worked.
Good.
I loved it.
Good.
I loved it. But I think in that too of like, you know, when it comes to like that intentionality as well, like following up with people. Because like you said, people
really
are
good.
busy.
Yeah.
Like I had a girlfriend that we've been talking. She came up to me in a coffee shop. Shout out to Kelly if you're listening to this. But she came up to me in a coffee shop last March, literally a year ago, and was like, we should totally grab coffee sometime. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I would love to. You seem really cool. Like, just want to know more about you. Totally dropped the ball and was like so busy for so long. But then also catching yourself in that moment of like, I do really want to get to know that person still and reaching back out again.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
I will say we finally got coffee this last weekend and it was like so life-giving and so fulfilling. So I will say it also comes up with, you know, it's okay if you drop the ball.
Yes.
But to then follow up.
I've done that many times. So yeah, I get that.
Would you say, you know, in your walk of intentionality, building up that like kind of desire to, maybe not desire, but life mission, we'll go with that, of being intentional, gathering people, being that person that is the gatherer, per se. What advice would you give to someone who feels like they're struggling to find authentic friendships in their faith community?
The first thing that came to my mind was pray about it. And I know that is so cliche sometimes, and that's always the answer. But I really think it's the answer for this. At least it's really worked in my life to pray about it and be patient for who God wants for you and what kind of community God wants around you. I've also been through multiple seasons of my life where I didn't feel like I had those close friends that I felt like I needed to help me grow and feel accountable and all those things. But in those seasons, God just taught me how much I needed to lean on him, and he needed to be my go-to, and he needed to be the person that gives me comfort in hard times, and he needed to be the person that I ranted about my day because it was hard. And so in those dry seasons where you might not feel connected to people or that you maybe have those best friends that are your go-tos, I think God can really use it as a season of growing your relationship with him. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. What about the opposite, which I'm going to throw you a little under the bus a little bit because it wasn't in the outline. But what advice would you have for someone who has like this desire to create community? Because I think we talk a lot about when you're looking for friendships, like, oh, if you're struggling to find friends or things like that. But we've also kind of had this narrative of like, be the person to be proactive about the situation. What advice would you have for like that side of the conversation in a way for like, you know, someone like me who's like, I have this like goal of like hosting more people?
Yeah. Something that I've been trying to do a little bit more in my life is inviting people into the things that you already have to do. So one of my friends lives in the Cloquet area, and every once in a while we'll go grocery shopping together because we both have to get groceries. And that just allows a little bit of time just to talk, even if it's for 45 minutes while you're moseying around Aldi. But
Aldi, love that.
Yeah, I think a really great way to do it is to invite you into things that you're already doing. And I say that because sometimes I love coffee with people. I love dinner or lunch or whatever it is. But sometimes it can get more expensive. And if you're trying to, you know, save money or, you know, if you do try to do it with too many people, it can just become a lot. So even if, okay, I want to walk today, going on a walk with people or inviting someone to the gym or, you know, inviting people into those daily things, which I've said a few times. But that's kind of my input.
No, that's good though.
Yeah.
That's good because I feel like someone be like, oh, I'm too busy to do these things. Or like, I don't have time to meet with these people. Because sometimes I find myself in that where I'm like, yeah, I need to plan literally 3 weeks in advance just to do a happy hour with someone because my week is just so packed.
Yeah.
But like, I've never thought of like, oh, maybe I should be like, hey, do you want to go grocery shopping Sunday after church? Or like, I'm going to go to the gym today if you want to join.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like habit stacking in a way.
Ooh,
like you're stacking
good.
those habits,
Yes.
but you're like stacking those like the people that you want to see. You're also pouring back into yourself of one, doing the things that you need to do. Or in other words, you're just doing something healthy for your body and your mind and your soul and going to the gym or for a walk like you were saying. And saving maybe a little bit of money while you're at it.
I think that's great. Yeah. Or like something that I've been trying to do is say, hey, do you want to, I've been having a hard time reading the word by myself. Do you want to come over and have a little Bible study with me so that one, I create that habit and am in the word, and two, then I also get time with someone else and to be with them. So
and having that foundation too of the Lord and the Bible and that accountability as well, because I think accountability is also a really key part of building strong faith-driven relationships and friendships. Yeah. Because it does help establish like healthy and supportive boundaries when it comes to relationships, but also how we grow spiritually. Like I have, still my college friends that every once in a while, like in the group chat, we'll be throwing a lightning bolt in the group chat where we're like, hey, going through something, pray for me. Like you don't need to say something back, but just kind of that like whole thought process of like, I have that accountability or like, I just randomly called a girlfriend of mine when I was driving down here today and was like, hey, like, here's what I'm going through. Here's a fun little story. Also, can I get your advice on something?
Yeah.
So for you, like in your friendships and when we talk about accountability, having that healthy, supportive relationships that help us to also grow spiritually, why is accountability so crucial in the Christian walk and especially in the stage of life that you are in right now?
Yeah. I think life can get hard and it's nice to do it beside people. I think that they can help encourage us and challenge us. I think that's a really important part of accountability. I think it's the two sides of the same coin, if that's how you say it, of you need encouragement to say, hey, keep going, keep doing it. Keep doing life and doing the hard thing because it's going to be good for you. But also, or that's more on the challenge side. The encouragement is like, hey, you can do this. Yeah. And I see these good things in you. And calling out the good is so good for people. And thinking of accountability in my life, like going through tough seasons, knowing the friends that were there to cry with me, but also say, hey, I know God has a good plan. And sometimes when we're in the midst of our struggles and our circumstances, it's hard to know that God is going to make it all work out. And he is going to turn everything for the good of those who love him. But of someone on the outside and someone who sees the situation is maybe going to have a little bit better of a perspective where they can have a third party perspective and say, hey, I see that is hard for you, but I know that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
That's so good. Do you have any, like, you kind of hinted at some, but do you have any, like, particular stories or instances that you can remember in your life where you're like, that was the accountability that I needed, even if it was hard, a hard accountability?
I think, okay, so I am really involved in young adult ministry at my church, and there has been seasons that God's really grown me in that and challenged me, and there's been hard parts of it. And I, in that season, went to my parents for it and went to my parents for that accountability of, hey, this is what's happening. This is hard. What should I do? And in that, they gave me encouragement and said, hey, you're doing it. Good job. Like, God is going to reward you in that. But also maybe challenged my way of thinking in some areas and said, okay, maybe let's not think about it like that. Let's think about it this way. Or I see that you're not doing this. Why is that? And so they got to help me shift. They helped me shift my perspective and my point of view to look at it with a new light and help me take a step back from the situation. Because I think when you explain it to someone else, sometimes you even think, oh, wait, it's not that big of a deal than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And I think that helped it for me is speaking it out loud and then realizing, oh, I've made a big deal about this and it's really not that big of a deal. So that's how accountability has helped me.
And I feel like that's really good. And I think for both of us, we've experienced this too. I remember when we were having dinner at your apartment that one time of like both talking about needing a step back from ministry and having had those friends that are like, hey, like you need to take a break because you are like, you're creating not like bigger problems, but you're stressing a lot about very minor things.
Yeah.
Like that's like what I love about my friends in my group. They're like, Rebecca, you need to like, we're going through we're just trying to get through it season. Like we need to take a step back in something.
Yeah.
And I would say most often than not, I don't want to use that, but some of the times it's like taking a step back even just from what we're involved in at church, because I think sometimes that stress then can come through in the way that we worship, the way that we lead, the way that we converse with people at church, because we're just like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on.
Yes. I totally understand that. This past year have kind of been going through a season of taking steps back in different areas at church or in ministry or in even just pouring into people and realizing what is good and God called me to and what is me just wanting to do.
Yeah.
Someone who's really called me out of on that is my fiance, because what I realized is having someone really close to you and seeing you through the ups and downs on the daily can notice you're stressing about this and it's really not that big of a deal, and helped call me out. Another point of accountability is having someone that is able to see you kind of on the daily, like your friends, to say, okay, maybe we should take a step back. And so sometimes it takes hearing that multiple times from people to really take the step and actually step out in stepping back or stepping into something. Is you have to hear multiple times from the people that are keeping you accountable.
It's definitely not what you want to hear.
That's true.
Like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Nope, we're going to continue.
I've been doing this for so long. Why would I change? That's what I think.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm right there with you. How, in the sense of someone, you know, maybe wanting that desire for accountability in relationships, even within just the Christian community, you hear a lot about like multi-generational discipleship. And I think it's so good, but a lot of people are like, what does that even mean? Like, what does multi-generational discipleship mean? And when it does come to accountability, like my high school girls, like we've been talking about this a lot of like, hey, do you have someone that if you need help with something or you need to talk about something, do you have a friend or a peer that you can go to? And they've wrestled with it because they're like, I don't know, like you? Like, and it's like, okay, yes, me, but there's 30 of you. I do not have 30 hours in a week. Like, that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like, I love you all. But how can someone initiate an accountability relationship with a friend or a peer? And I would say, like, in life in general or just within that church community, within multi-generational discipleship.
Yeah. Ask is a simple answer, but I think it is very valid. I have wanted that in my church, and I've wanted to reach out to people and seek that multi-generational. I've wanted to seek someone that is older than me and has gone through life. And now that I'm engaged, I want to seek someone who's married and say, hey, how are you doing this? How can I learn from you? And people in ministry, you know, those different things. Anyways, I didn't realize how easy it is just to say, hey, I need some discipleship. I need some wisdom. Could you meet up with me? And I've done that with a few different women in my church. And they're like honored. They're honored that you would ask them for their wisdom and their advice on something and just to do life with you. It depends on maybe how involved they are, because some people might not have the time. And I know, especially if you have young families, and that's very busy. But I'm sure there is more women than you think that want to do that and see that as an honor and a blessing to be able to pour in. So start with just asking.
How did you get over that initial fear of asking? Because I feel like you could say asking is the easiest like way to do it, but like that fear of like, are they gonna? It's kind of like asking someone out on a date in a way. You're like that fear of rejection, or like the fear of them being like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so busy. Like, how did you get over that when you were like, hey, like when you sent that text message, or like, how did you maybe source out who you wanted to meet with?
That's really good. I think spending time being involved in the church really helps. So maybe if you don't know different women in your church, I would just say get involved and start to be in places where you'll get to know them. I went on a women's retreat this past October, and so I got to meet a lot of the women, and then you have little conversations in here and there. And so if there is a women at retreat at your church, I recommend doing that. Otherwise, if you get involved in maybe you get involved in children's ministry and you get to know some of them there, or you get involved on worship team and then you get to know some women there. And then at that point, I think it's important to assess how they live for the Lord. I don't think you should pick just anyone to be your accountability partner or be the person that you ask for wisdom for.
Yeah.
Assess how they live and how they love people and how they love the Lord. And then once you kind of see, hey, that's a person that I want to be like, then I think ask. And it's helpful to ask when you have a relationship. Like you said, how do you get over that fear? Just like in asking someone out, which I don't really have a lot of experience with. I mean, to be like, anyways,
But it's like it's building that relationship before you're asking for like them to be an intimate part of your life. Yes. It's kind of like if I was to like throw an analogy out there, you're this could be I'm scared. I mean, we're in this whole like asking someone out. It's like you're in the dating phase right now before you're getting engaged. Like you gotta kind of source through the questions, get to know them a little bit more before you're like, let's have an intimate conversation about like, hey, I need your wisdom. Yes. Very weird analogy, but that's
how about this analogy?
I'm ready.
What if you gotta kind of be in the talking stage?
Perfect.
So with accountability partners and seeking older women in your life, gotta be in the talking phase for a while.
All right.
Like see if you really like talking to them. I mean,
if you're compatible.
Okay, in all seriousness though, you do want someone that you enjoy being around. I don't want to be out to coffee with a lady in the church that I'm like, this is boring.
Right.
I mean, then you're not really going to learn a lot. So, analogy, that totally worked. Yeah.
It did work. It was, we were going to get there eventually.
I think we got there.
We did. We very much did.
Oh my gosh.
How, in the sense of accountability and friendships and multi-generational discipleships, in maybe those accountability partners and relationships that you have currently.
Yeah.
What does a healthy accountability partnership look like? And how do you kind of ensure it stays supportive and not judgmental? It's a very heavy question.
It's heavy. And I really liked to think about this one because it honestly made me take a look at myself and how good I am in accountability relationships. The first thing I thought about, though, is find someone who's raw and real with you. It's going to be easier to be raw and real with them back.
That's good.
If you meet someone that doesn't want to share anything about their life and only listen to you, it's going to be harder to open up to them rather than someone who says, this is my testimony. These are the ways that I've messed up in life. And here's how God brought me through it. Well, that's going to make it so much easier for me to then go to them and say, here are the ways I messed up in life. Like, I messed up last week and I shouldn't have done that or whatever it is. If they're honestly open with you with their struggles, it's going to be so much easier to be open with them.
That's really good. How, kind of sticking on this question just a little bit, how do you also ensure that it maybe stays supportive within that? Because I think, the judgmental part comes from being open and honest with each other, but also making sure it's supportive in like, do you consistently reach out to them? Do you kind of wait for them to probably not reach out to you because we just talked about you should, initiate and host people, bring people to the table. But how do you make sure that you, one, stay supportive as a accountee, but also like get that support as an accountability partner?
Yeah, that's hard. I'm still kind of figuring that out in my own life. Because we do understand that everyone is busy. And so maybe you need to talk to that person and then they're not available. That gets frustrating because you are going through something and you're like, this is my person that I've been raw and real with. And when they're not available, that's tough. And I'm still figuring that out. I think just being honest with them, and maybe in all honesty, it might take a few different people. Like it might take, okay, this person maybe isn't supportive in the way that I'm needing.
Mm.
And so maybe that means you have to continue to pray and seek out someone else. It might just not come with the first person that you find, unfortunately. And it also just depends on their season of life. I think we all go through seasons. So certain times in my life, I've been a lot more available to meet with people or to have someone pour into me. And then other seasons of life, I'm like, can't do anything this week. And it's not because I don't love you and want to pour into you. It's just because life is busy and I have a lot of responsibilities.
For sure. And I think too, like, I think you're going to have different accountability partners for different things.
Yes, that's really good.
That's okay. And I think I feel like there's always this like, not like stigma, but I think there's some times where you feel like you can only have one person and like you can't share.
That's really good.
Where I think me as myself, like I can pour into a couple different girls a week as they're navigating high school and like I've been there and I'm their youth group leader.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, this is my one person. Yes. But I think also vice versa too. Like those girls can have different people that they talk to because I might be going through a different thing in my life that I can relate to them more on versus someone else.
Yeah.
And, eventually you're going to be able to get in contact with one of those people.
Yes. Oh, I definitely have multiple people in my life. Maybe that I've shared different seasons with, or they know different raw moments in my life that I just go through for different things. So I totally get that. Yeah.
And you alluded to this a little bit when we were talking about like how do you initiate accountability, and we're kind of talking about the whole talking stage, like trying to figure out if you're a match in a way, if you're going to swipe right or swipe left, like
okay, for sure.
And it all came down to like serving together in community, whether if that's like on the worship team or the nursery or going on a mission trip together or going to a women's conference.
Yeah.
In those instances of someone wanting to come and find Christian, we talked a lot about accountability and finding an accountability partner, but even friendships.
Yeah.
How can one get involved in the church or in the church community in ways that, I know it's kind of weird in here, like build others up and strengthen our own faith, but I think the question I want to get to is how can we get involved in the church and the church community in a sense that our intention is to serve the Lord as well as find people that we can be in community with outside of the church walls.
Yeah. I kind of think you answered it with the question.
Oh, okay. This is why we make really good friends, because we're like, hey, wait a second.
I think a lot of times we can build friendships by just serving God and doing that, and then kind of the friendships are made along the way. A lot of my friends have been created through serving the Lord. I did YWAM, which was just my intention of I want to just serve the Lord and do this travel ministry. For those of you who don't know, it's called Youth with a Mission. And I wanted to go for 5 months and just serve the Lord. And that's when I wanted to spend my time. Through that, I have met multiple people that are close friends of mine today. But that was only because I was serving the Lord. And there's been other mission trips that I've been on that I've come out of it with fun, good friends and good memories just because I was serving the Lord. And so I think even if your intention is, okay, I'm going to serve the Lord and do something that you enjoy, whether that's a mission trip, whether that's serving in a particular ministry at church, or creating maybe a book club with friends and being intentional about pursuing them instead of just being pursued. Just follow the Lord, and I think that like people that are in that same area will kind of come around you more naturally.
That's good. Now, I would say we were talking about a hot take earlier.
Oh no.
In a hot take, I would say what we've been talking about with our youth group is that church is just so much more than the building. Very true. But how is it so much more is you have to be involved in the church is where you're going to find that it is so much more than just a building.
Yeah.
And hot take is a lot of people are like, I'm not good at anything.
Oh, snap. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like there's people that are like, I don't like kids, or I'm not a big kid person, or, I don't have time to, go to church for first service and stay after for second service and help in Sunday school, or I'm not musically gifted, or I don't have the time. What would you say to someone who feels like they don't have enough time or skills to serve meaningfully in the church?
Hot take, but so real.
So real.
Because to the people that just show up on a Sunday, it is just a building to them. I mean, in all honesty, there's no community or family, I think, that is around them. At least that would be my perspective of it. I would say to those people, you do have something that is good. It's way more than just children's ministry or youth group or worship team. Like
there's so many other options.
Yes, the need is so much greater than that. I mean, the sound team, doing slides. I mean, that's pretty simple for a church. Maybe you're like, I want to kind of be in the background and just do slides. Great idea. I think of you really like to cook. You know how many events that churches put on and just need someone to kind of cook or like be in the kitchen to help with that? Or graphic design. If you're like, I like to sit on my computer and I like to make different posters. Well, I'm sure events and your church would love to use your help for that. I would say, though, to kind of step out in that, I wanted to mention, though, first, to know that you do have something valuable. Like, don't kid yourself to think you don't have anything valuable. You don't have the time. I think there's something that you can do. You just might not know it yet. I do think the leaders and the pastors in your church are a great place to start. They're probably going to have a better full view of the church and the needs that the church has. And if you're able to kind of say some of your interests, I think that they can lead you in the right direction or maybe help you talk to the right person in order to find that niche or the little area that you'd be good at.
That's good. Which comes to asking. And I think also praying, we got to bring it back to prayer. But I think
bring it back to prayer.
I think that's good because people are also, that's their easy out is I don't have time. Like the amount of people that I have talked to been like, hey, are you able to serve for this? They're like, I'm sorry, I just don't have time. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I respect that because I don't know what's going on. I'm also like, but like, we'd love to get you into like part of the church community or like you expressed wanting to be a part of it. And I'm like let's figure this out here.
Yeah.
But for you, as I would say, like you're a church leader, like you lead in the church quite frequently and known and loved by your church community. For those that maybe are on the opposite scale, you got the people that are like, I don't have enough time. I don't know what I can do. You have the people like us that are like, we're there more often than probably what we should be. It's like another job. And we're very involved in different aspects of, youth ministry, young adult ministry, worship ministry, all the things.
Yeah.
As someone who's maybe in that seat, how would you say, or maybe some advice for them to seek and find those who might be looking for a place to serve and how to steward that conversation well?
Oh, snap. Okay, are you talking about...
Like if you were to be on stage and you're, looking at everybody, I do this more often than I probably should, is I'm like, you're new. Like everyone has a seat. And if you can totally tell when someone is sitting in someone else's seat because they get the little like side eye and it's quite comical.
For sure.
Is like watching TV while I'm just worshiping because you're like, oh, you sat in that person's spot. And I was like, you're all so new because you didn't know.
That's so funny. I'm not that observant, but
now you're going to do this on Sunday.
Shoot.
It's going to start.
I'm on a worship team.
You're on the stage, you're looking out, you kind of see maybe some new people and, in talking to them, like seeking them out, like introducing yourself, you kind of figure out like, oh, they're really good at this. Like, they should be a part of this. Like, without being too overbearing. Yeah. Because I think if it is their first time in the church, it might not be because you might have just noticed them that week. how do you steward that conversation well of being like, hey, like, that's really cool. Like, we do have some opportunities here. Like, how would you steward that conversation?
I would say I would start with getting them involved in the way of being poured into and not necessarily pouring into the church right away. I think saying, okay, here are the ministries that we have that could pour into you, whether that's a woman in the women's ministry or the men's ministry or the young adult ministry or whatever that ministry is. Here's how we can pour into you and kind of help get them involved in that. And then once they feel a little bit more, okay, I like this church. I want to give back. I think that's when you can have the conversation and say, oh, I see you're good at this, and then call them out on it and use it even in a way of just encouragement, and then saying, hey, do you want to help us? Do you want to jump on the same team as us as the church and be part of the body by bringing what you have to the table?
That's good. I think the way that you said that is like finding places for them to get poured into first rather than pouring out of themselves to the church is a great reminder. Because I think sometimes as leaders, we're like, oh my gosh, please help. Like the amount of volunteers it takes for even as a normal Sunday morning is so many. So many that you're like, oh, yay. In your experience of, serving in the church, having those accountability partners, having those friendships that are so built on the Lord and faith, what are some ways that you've seen those aspects help you grow in your own personal relationship with the Lord?
I think, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. In like serving with other people in your church and having your accountability partners, having those like faith-filled friends, you're doing life together. How have you seen those different components kind of play into your own personal relationship that you have with the Lord?
Yeah. I think God created us for community and we need it. And we see that in so many different areas because when we're not in community, we feel lonely or we struggle with all these different things. And community, I think, can bring so much of the heart of God into our lives. I want to go back to the last question and bring an aspect of that out because I've noticed in times in my life where I've been pouring out and not been poured into, and that can drain you more. And so the friends that are around me and the people that I choose to spend my time with, I want to help build me up and encourage me so that I can go out and do. And I think that's an important aspect, whether you're a leader and maybe you are the person that is pouring into other people, making sure that you have those friends and you choose to go out of your way to be poured into. Maybe that means going to a different church on a Sunday night or finding a different place to be poured into spiritually. Or maybe that means going out of your way to do a random group that's not connected to the church and putting yourself in those positions to be rejuvenated when it feels like sometimes it's like we're trying to find those people to volunteer and we're trying to love on those people and mentor people. And I think it's important to make sure it has ample opportunity to do that to you first.
That's really good. Are there any like scripture passages or, people in the Bible that you kind of lean on in those instances of getting your cup filled back up again, or those reminders of like, hey, I'm pouring a lot of myself out right now and like I just need to be poured into?
Yeah. When you said that, I thought of Mary and Martha, which I think is the thing that everybody goes back to. But I think that story is a really great example of how Jesus himself made it clear that we need to sit and be filled sometimes and just to be in the presence of Jesus and others. I mean, if Martha just would have been there and they would have been in that community, how much that could have filled them up and rejuvenated them before going out and getting all these things done and making sure it's all perfect. And that's kind of what I lean on because I tend to be the person that wants to just continue to do and be busy and get all of life stuff done.
Slowing down is not in our vocabulary.
No. But the funny thing is that's exactly what Jesus wanted her to do. That's what Jesus wanted. He says, be still. that's kind of foreign sometimes in culture, and especially in our lives. Being still is really hard to be. And I think that, I guess, reminding yourself that that's what Jesus calls us to before doing. Granted, I think that he uses us a lot in doing, and he wants us to be vessels of him, and he wants us to be the body of what he wants to do in the world. But at the same time, we just need to be filled up and rejuvenated by him and the people around us that can love us and support us, because I think he made it that way.
That's good. Rest is hard.
So
we talk about
hard.
that a lot on the pod. I would say a lot. We did a lot in the beginning seasons of Between the Pages because your girl over here could not sit down and rest to save her life. And I was like feeling a little added by the Lord right now as I'm talking.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, even God rested.
Yeah.
And on the seventh day when he was creating the world. And Jesus rested on a boat in the middle of a storm. Like,
that's a great story. I wish I could sleep on a boat
in the middle of a
storm.
And just to be like, I always think, I'm like, and he just casually wakes up and is like, what's going on? Like, why are y'all freaking out? I would love if there's any part that I could be a fly on the wall or in the boat, it would be that. Like, I just want to see that interaction between the disciples and Jesus, to them like totally freaking out, which we often do in our lives.
Yeah.
And Jesus is just, casually taking a nap. And then being like, why are we so, like, why? And then in like 2 seconds, the waves are like obeying. And the storm is like calm.
Yeah. I think Jesus is just the perfect example of rest. And I mean, obviously he is because he's Jesus. But I was thinking about the times when he was doing ministry and he was swarmed by people. And he would just say, I need to go be with the Lord. Like, and he would go away to rest. And he wasn't so affected by all the things that needed to be done because I'm sure so many miracles needed to be done and so many things could have been done, and he could have constantly be in the state of working, and he's God. It wouldn't have really affected him. But he chose to be an example of saying, no, we need to rest. I need, as a human, to rest my body and to rest my spirit and my soul in order then to go back and love on people and to be in community like that.
That was just a full circle. I was like, we're rabbit trailing, and then we brought it back. It was like, whoa! It was funny. So good. One of the things that we like to, end episodes on this podcast with our guests, because, there's so much good information and there's so much wisdom in each episode, but a lot of people are like, okay, what's an action item that I can take this week to start finding community or finding that accountability partner, or to be the one to invite people to the table rather than to be invited to the table?
Yeah.
What would you say is maybe a takeaway or an action item for the listeners, the watchers, to take with them in this next week as they continue to build their communities and their friendships in their own life?
Yeah. Funny story. We were talking about the dating analogy, and what I wrote down for this question was make the first move.
I love it.
Literally, because I think my takeaway from this and building community and wanting to be involved in the church or whatever the thing is, take that first step. Make the first move. Make people know that you're interested. Don't expect everything to come to you. And I think you'll see the fruit of it. It might not be easy, and there might be some kind of rejection. Like, it might not all perfectly work out, but if you start taking steps forward and making the first move, I think it's going to work out a lot better, and you'll see, oh, wait, other people want to do this too.
That's really good. That's going to be my challenge, is to make the first move. Make the first move.
In life or in dating?
It could be both.
Okay, perfect.
It could be both. I mean...
No, that's good.
I just am thinking how that would turn out. LOL. This is our conversations to a T. We get on these really weird... It's like goes from serious and total 180. Like,
Yeah. I had to add that in because we had this whole dating aspect to the... I hope that when you guys are seeking community, somehow you bring in like, oh yeah, if I was to ask someone out right now, how would it go down? And that's what comes to your mind when you do it.
I mean, when Kelly and I did get coffee, I I want to say I think I did make the first move because I was like, hey, remember we were going to try and get coffee that one time and it never happened?
Yes.
What does your schedule look like? Like, that is a
Hey.
very good example. You made the first move to come say hi to me at the worship night. I think someone also kind of like brought us
Maybe,
together.
yeah.
But it was also the first move that I made. I was like, hey, let's grab coffee and see how this is a coffee thing.
Yeah.
I should have been like, hey, you want to go grocery shopping together and talk about a worship night for the Twin Ports?
Here's the thing, though. Maybe don't make your first date with someone grocery
with the
shop.
air quotations. I just want to make sure everyone.
We're not actually talking about dating. It's fine.
I want to make sure everyone on listening realizes that she just did the air quotations, and I've not seen that in like a year and a half, and I love that.
I'm kind of an old soul.
I love it. I love it.
No, but
it is true. You know, sometimes you have to get over that fear and just, you want to get to know someone, and just reach out.
That's it.
Just reach out.
Yeah.
Just like Jesus reached out to the disciples and was like, come follow me.
Yeah.
Wow. That was kind of like an epiphany there for a second.
He wasn't afraid of their rejection. They could have. Those guys were not the tip of the top guys.
True.
And they could have been like, no, you're weird.
But they're like,
okay. And they dropped it all and followed him. How crazy.
So wild. So wild. Well, friends, I hope you really enjoyed this episode, because if you want to know what mine and Lexi's conversations are like on a normal basis, is literally this last like 15 minutes. It is beautiful chaos.
Oh my.
And lots of like connections and all the things. And one of the things that we just want to make sure that you guys know is that you are loved and your communities love you, and to find those people that, you know, that you want to get to know and make that first move and go out for coffee, go on a walk, start your own Bible study. If there's a couple people that you want to know that, you know, maybe they're also looking for community. You're never going to know unless you ask. And so with that, any last pieces of advice, Lexi, before we close out the episode today?
Oh, man. Don't be intimidated by it. Like, after all this talk, and we even brought in a dating analogy, don't be intimidated by all of it. Have fun. Choose to just have fun in your relationships with people, because if it's so serious all the time and we focus so much on accountability or making sure we get through all these life's challenges, sometimes it just can get draining. So just have fun with people, choose to do fun things with people, and it's going to be so much better.
And be patient with people.
Yeah.
Because those friendships that you see online of like people being buddy-buddy do not happen overnight. They don't.
Yeah.
Our friendship did not happen overnight.
No.
We're going on 2 years.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. And we're just getting into like the meat and potatoes of friendship.
Meat and potatoes.
I'm pulling one from Asher's book.
I love that. Okay.
He's back behind the computer just like beaming ear to ear. He's like, yes, I made it. Well, friends, thank you so much. Lexi, thank you for joining us and pouring into our community and just sharing your experience and your wisdom when it comes to finding friendship in your 20s and 30s when it just seems kind of hard and a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that people are going to use your story and your wisdom to just build upon their own communities. And I'm so excited to see how they make the first move in their friendships and all the things. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, friends, like always, thank you so much for joining us. You can always find us on Facebook, Instagram at Boldly Seeking. Always make sure that you go like and subscribe to our episodes. Comment on there. We'll make sure to comment back. Or if you have a comment for Lexi, we'll get that comment off to her. But all of your views, all of your shares to your friends, all of your subscribes and likes really go a long way for us in reaching more of a community beyond just the Twin Ports. And so we are excited to see how God takes everything beyond and between the pages of life with you all. So thank you, and we'll see you here in a couple weeks. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and rate our show to stay up to date on our latest episode releases. We'd love to hear from you, so head on over to our website or the gram, say hi, be encouraged, and join the movement as we continue to boldly seek after Jesus together. We'll see you next time on the Between the Pages podcast.